All right, today we're jumping into Dr. Annie Poonan's Guide for Christian Mothers, God Made Mothers. We're going to deconstruct his core principles to really understand the specific worldview on parenting that it presents.
Okay, so right out of the gate, this sets the tone. She's not just talking about motherhood as a job or a role. No, she frames it as one of the greatest callings on earth. That immediately tells you this guide is approaching the topic with a profound sense of significance.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with that core premise, motherhood as a high calling. Then we'll look at the foundation of faith, why a mother's inner life is so crucial, the practical principles for raising kids, and finally, what the ultimate goal of all this is supposed to be. So first up, let's really get to the heart of the problem this book is trying to solve. What's the big challenge for modern mothers, according to the author?
You know, this book is written for a very specific person. It's for the mother who feels like raising kids in a godly way in today's world is just exhausting. She feels worn out, maybe a little lost. This guide is meant to be a source of encouragement just for her. So, if that's the problem, what's the solution? Well, according to the guide, it all comes back to one single foundational idea.
And to really drive this home, the author uses the biblical story of Timothy. His faith didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was passed down to him from his mother, Eunice, and his grandmother, Lois. This idea of generational faith is presented as the absolute key.
And this is where the stakes get raised big time. This children as arrows metaphor completely reframes parenting. It's no longer just about raising a good kid. Suddenly, it's a high-stakes spiritual mission with eternal consequences, where your children are, quite literally, weapons in a cosmic war.
Okay, so if the stakes are that high, where does a mother even begin? Well, the book argues that the most important work isn't external. It's not about what you do, it's internal. It all starts with the condition of her own heart and mind. A huge part of this is what the author calls maintaining a sensitive conscience. And she identifies several key things, or snares as she calls them, that she believes can damage it, and in turn, directly harm her children. Now, what's really fascinating here is that every single one of these points is about the mother's own character, her relationship with money, her honesty, her humility. The argument is that these aren't just personal virtues, they are the very atmosphere her children breathe and absorb. So when you boil it all down, the message here is that a mother's inner spiritual health, her good conscience, is the most valuable asset she can ever give her kids. It's an inheritance that's worth more than all the money in the world.
All right, so how does all of this inner work actually translate into the practical, day-to-day chaos of raising children? Let's get into the how-to.
Now, this might seem a little counterintuitive, right? You'd expect a guide like this to have a long list of do's and don'ts. But the author actually argues against that, saying there's something much more fundamental and long-lasting than just rules. So instead of a rigid rule book, which can often backfire and lead to either legalism or outright rebellion, the advice is to teach a few core principles. Things like obedience, truthfulness, and unselfishness. The idea is to build an internal compass in your kids, not just an external fence. But what about when correction is needed? The book lays out a very specific 5-step procedure. And the focus is really interesting. It's all about the parent's emotional state, being a united front, and, crucially, preserving the child's dignity by never ever shaming them in public. And it's not all about discipline. In fact, the author puts the highest possible value on encouragement. She gives this powerful warning that a child who lacks encouragement can become, in her words, warped and twisted, just like a plant that's kept in the dark. So we've talked about the calling, the faith, the inner life, and the practical steps. But what's the whole point? What's the why behind this entire framework? Where's this all supposed to lead? And there it is. The end game, according to this perspective, isn't about raising successful kids or even happy kids, at least not primarily. The number one objective of motherhood is to guide your children toward God, with the hope of securing a shared destiny in eternity. Ultimately, this guide is all about a massive shift in perspective. It takes motherhood from a domestic, earthly role and elevates it to a spiritual one with cosmic, eternal significance. And that leaves us with a final big question. How does seeing your child as an arrow in a spiritual battle change absolutely everything?